This is Media Sales Mastery, the podcast for media sales professionals. In each episode, we bring you information, insights, and ideas from some of the industry's top thought leaders. Connect with us to help pick the topic and guide the show.
This is Media Sales Mastery, the podcast for media sales professionals. I'm your host, Jamie Wood, and this is part 2 of Precision Prospecting, how to identify and connect with new advertisers. Now, the example I gave in the last episode around top commercial real estate agents saying that they spend anywhere from 2 to 6 hours per day prospecting blew a lot of people's minds. I got a lot of feedback around how impractical that is. That is 100% true, right? In that industry, if you think about it, very, very low turnover, very high transaction size, very tight competitive market, a lot of assets sitting on the market for a long time. That level of brute force, and intensity is just required. And it actually made me reflect, in media sales, we're very lucky that maybe we don't have to spend 6 hours a day prospecting. But think about if you were to do that for a week. That would have a substantial impact on the results that you would have. It would certainly make your prospecting a lot sharper. I'm not suggesting we need to do that, but I do think that looking at prospecting as its own specific part of media sales and really unpacking, going back to some of the brilliant basics, but also thinking about some of the new innovations that are required in this day and age to actually connect with an increasingly busy prospect, an increasingly complex organization, and obviously just a much shoutier, more distracted world. So very thrilled to have our returning guest. It's Matthew Smith. He's the Chief Commercial Officer of Aspermont, joining us from the UK. Really keen to dive into this one once again.
The first 5.
So Matt, tell us a bit more about Aspermont and the prospecting process within the revenue organization that you lead. What are some of the unique challenges of selling, a highly, from what I understand, a highly specialized proposition to a very particular customer type?
Yeah, well, we're a specialist business-to-business information provider. So I think for some of your listeners, business-to-business can seem a little bit not the most exciting area to be in, but it's really, really critical. And for us, as a business, and we're a business that has brands that are over 500 years old that are pretty much were launched around when mining first started. And I think there'll be a lot of other specialist publications or specialist brands out there that are in a similar environment. And our business is fairly unique because it has 2 revenue channels. We have reader revenue, which is generated by readers who pay to access our content, and marketing services, which is traditional advertising and marketing solutions. I think the challenges that sales face are uniform and not unique to sectors. For mining, we are tied to cyclical conditions. So if the commodity market is doing very well, we do well. If the commodity market drops or metal prices drop, we tend to see that impacting our own business. But I think that they're trends that can impact any sector. Also, many companies that we're dealing with are now in the technology innovation space who we really see as ideal new business opportunities. Technology is the underlying driver of change, I think, in any sector. And a lot of these technology disruptors now see opportunities and have been actively involved in the heavy industry sectors, which mining is just one of many. So one of the challenges is that we're dealing with companies that are they're in the heavy industry sector, but mining is one piece of that pie. There'll be manufacturing, there'll be agriculture, there will be pulp, paper, cement, etc. I think in that when we look at business-to-business sales, there's been a rapid shift post-COVID. It was happening before that, and I know it's a bit of a cliche that post-COVID everything has accelerated quickly, but we've definitely seen that in our own business. Remote working has made it harder to engage by traditional methods, which was the phone. Unless you have established relationships and you're doing new business development, which is a critical part of any business, it's becoming harder and harder to connect with buyers. And for new business, commercial professionals, people who are working in sales, they have to work a lot more harder. And they now must use their time to build credible and value-focused conversations to engage potential customers.
The part that I found so fascinating there was what you said at the start, that you've got 500-year-old brands. I know that, we talk about like legacy brands or heritage brands. I don't think anyone's got something that's been around for that period of time. That's quite amazing.
Yeah, it is. And and I think it all comes down to, information consumption habits that, we have an audience that, that still requests print. There's a legacy. Yep. We produce print because based upon reader demands and interest, but we're also seeing that the information and digital is an increasingly important area. And our clients, the marketing professionals that we're talking to, they're becoming increasingly more sophisticated. And it's been really interesting. My experience in technology, the technology sector has shown that you look at marketing professionals or marketing activation in those sectors, it's significantly more advanced than some of the, what I would call traditional sectors, mining being one of them. So it's quite an exciting opportunity to apply some of the learnings from other business sectors to what is an old, traditional, but a critically important sector for the modern world.
Absolutely. Well, let's dive into the main part.
Media Sales Mastery.
One of the things I wanted to ask about Aspermont's approach to client outreach, and we sort of touched on it previously, is how might like a media sales professional identify who the right contact people are? You mentioned about obviously understanding that organizations are different buying committees. How do they sort of map out the decision makers or buying committees, and then how do they sort of ideally navigate the right way in, do you think?
Yeah, I think it's a long process, and I think if you're a sales leader and you're setting a new business initiative, it's really important to actually be realistic on time frame. Like I have a view, and I always say to my sales team, look, if you're doing a new business approach, I'm not expecting you to walk on water in the first 3 weeks. It's going to take time, and you should be looking at any kind of business development or new outreach on a quarterly basis. I still believe fundamentally it comes down to asking the right questions, understanding how decisions are made. So build up your playbook of questions that you want to cover, but be adaptable and don't, as you said earlier on the call, don't work to a script. Work on a model which is going to allow you to be flexible and adaptable, and don't be complacent. I think, I feel that one of the biggest lessons I learned as a sales rep was that I spent a huge amount of time securing a new business win. I went through everything that I'm preaching to you about on the call here. And I messed up. I was very happy. I felt that I got to a stage with this client where, they agreed, proposal was out, they were very happy. I was happy, had a request for an IO to be sent over to them. And 2 weeks later, I was getting no response. And I thought to myself, this seems really odd. I thought we kind of had an agreement. My point of contact had gone very quiet, had effectively ghosted me. And that's a really big challenge at the moment. Probably the biggest challenge is getting to this stage and then clients ghosting you and not responding. But what I found was the reason I was not getting any response was that the finance team basically had sign-off authority. And in my own euphoria, I failed to ask that simple question, once I send you the IO, what happens next?
Yeah.
And what is the sign-off stage? And what happened is that the finance team reviewed, assessed, and said, okay, we need to, this doesn't fall under our terms and conditions. And, a lesson learned there.
And what's funny is in that scenario, it can be really easy to go, the client, the prospect should have preempted this. But I'm finding in many cases, the prospect doesn't even actually doesn't even realize that there might be a potential blockage until it gets to that stage. Mm. One of the lines that I heard used to great effect recently, which I think is fantastic for that, is when you have a preliminary meeting, if you want to try and progress the sales conversation, the line he used was great. It was, when we meet again, who would feel left out if we don't include them? And there's something about the way that he actually asked that question where it causes the prospect to really think laterally about it and go, oh, well, I guess finance would want to have an opinion on this, and they'd probably feel left out if a contract hits their inbox with no context, or probably I'm going to need to get marketing into into this conversation as well, because they're a stakeholder. They're not the decision maker, but they definitely would feel left out if I didn't consult them. So I think that one, I've not used it myself yet, but I remember thinking that's a really good way to ask that question early, to ideally, you can never eliminate them fully, but to ideally minimize those landmines that always come up at the end of a deal.
Yeah, I think there's another good example of that was, I had a meeting with a client, and it was a new business opportunity, and I felt it was when we asked about, okay, they asked for a proposal, and we asked the question, well, okay, how do you present that proposal? So if we send that to you, how do we present that? How do you present that? And they said, we fill in this internal document, so we take from the PowerPoint or the Word document the key points, and we have to put the proposal in this certain template. So we then said, well, why don't we supply you the proposal in your template?
Yes.
In order to aid that. So it's so difficult that, as sales professionals, we get excited with the deal, we get excited with the opportunity. It's sometimes, as you were saying there, it's just asking, who else is involved, who would be left out of this, and to try and make sure that you're covering all corners of the discussion.
Yeah. I know, spending a long time leading agency sales teams in my previous roles, one of the big things I used to always say is a great pitch, like a great, media sales presentation, is obviously very important. But where you can really, where things can really fall off the tracks is if you don't consider the chain of custodies. Like, you might have an amazing solution that gets presented beautifully and has all the mock-ups and gets everyone in the room excited. But if the agency can't then pick that up, interpret that, translate that, and on-sell that to the client, or find a way to adapt that into their specific template in order to present it in the way they do, it's kind of irrelevant. Like, it actually just creates more friction or more work, or there's a lot of opportunity for things to get lost. So I think such a good insight there around being a little skeptic, having a bit of skepticism, I think actually at the moment in sales can be quite healthy. I would never normally say that, but being able to play a bit of devil's advocate and find out where some of those points of friction or contention could arise that could actually, destabilize the whole deal. It's so critical at the moment, particularly given how, finite time is and how finite resources are for a lot of people.
Yeah, agreed.
So let's talk about something a little different, referrals. Everybody talks about referrals being fantastic. They're the best. Do they play a role in prospecting? And if they're so good, why are they so widely underutilized by salespeople? I don't understand it.
I think the simple answer to that is we're a species that don't have patience. And I think that I think salespeople inherently are looking at, we look short term to mid term. I don't think we sometimes look long term. And I think referrals are fantastic. And I think there's a lot of situations where as sales professionals, we do an outstanding job securing new business. And there'll be people listening to this podcast who have been incredibly successful at that. But I think it's really a question that referrals are built from trust. And, you need to build relationships. You need to deliver value. You need to become that trusted partner for that point of contact. Once you build that trust, once you build the empathy with the individual, that's where you can start to ask them to assist and support you. And I think that don't ever underestimate the power that, that if you can identify and connect and establish a champion within the client that you're talking to, or with someone within that industry that can help you, that's really important in terms of building your credibility in the market, but also building the opportunity to fast track and to build connections with other marketeers. I think sales has become so focused on selling that once they secure a transactional sale, once they've done the most difficult part, they sometimes neglect the important element, which is staying in contact with that person that you've traded with. Yeah. To build relationship. It should never always be the focus of a sales call. It should be, how do I build relationships? How do I provide value? How do I differ or differentiate myself from the competitor set? And I think that if you can build connections and get those individuals to referral, it's really important. If you're looking to account map, across a large organization, if you can build that empathy, you should then also share with them, look, I've got a goal, which is to really understand your organization, your company, who are the key stakeholders. Can you spend some time running through that with me? I think if you've built that trust, then they're going to be more open to that. If you sell them a service or a solution, and then you're not in contact with them for another 6 months or till renewal, you're not really taking advantage of the opportunity that you've built yourself.
Yeah, and it leads into this next question, because some sales professionals, don't have a lot of opportunity. Like, they sell into very niche markets or very specialized markets where maybe new client opportunity isn't as abound as it might be in broadcast. So when the stakes are really high, like when you sell in a tight market, when you've got a very defined customer profile, how might they approach prospecting, where it's not a case of doing 10 cold calls and hoping to get 2 meetings? It might be absolutely critical that the target they identify, they secure that meeting with that particular client. Any advice for how to approach that?
I think really the point there is that it probably lies in 2 areas. You can upsell into your existing customer base, or really deep dive into the industry sector that you're working in. So if you're looking at your industry sector, you're reading about it, all the services or the sector that you are representing, try to look at, what are the kind of other services that surround that sector that can influence or are looking to connect with the audience that you're representing. I always go, technology is a splendid example of a disruptor across all sectors. And when you look at technology as a sector, it's very deep, it's very broad. There are various areas that can impact any organization. So I think looking at those sectors, identifying who the industry lead is. The industry lead is the individual. So finding out that if you're going to a large corporate and you're working within, say, like the dental sector, or if you're working like for the architecture sector, look at the individual that would be potentially representing and serving customers within that niche, and then start to build conversations with them. I also feel that really understanding the buyers goes back to the buying team in terms of really understanding who else is involved in it. But all sectors that you're in will be surrounded by subsectors, professional services, consultancies. Sometimes it can be government organizations that are looking to fund or support that particular sector, that are looking to work with a trusted partner that you could be representing. So trying to think a little bit outside the box, but it comes down to talking to your content producers. So if you have the traditional editorial team, talking to them and asking them where do they see changes. If you're working within other areas, just really talking to your content producers or your marketing team in terms of what they're seeing.
It's an interesting space when you speak about, having this amazing tool of content and editorial in a business. And I think it particularly comes in handy when you have people that might be great at understanding media. They might understand the product, they might understand the channel, audiences measurement, all that conventional stuff. But maybe they don't have a strong understanding of the industries they sell into yet. I find that, that can be a source of a lot of intimidation with prospecting is, I'm selling into a highly technical buyer. How do I sort of, speak with authority and conviction if I don't necessarily understand their sector intimately, or, if I don't know the specific terminology they use? I don't want to kind of undermine my own expertise here by saying something. Does that happen in Aspermont? Is the first question, or is that an example you've seen where salespeople can really grapple with that? And if so, how do you sort of coach people around that?
I also use the resources around you. I think that we work in a complex industry. Mining, it's not the sexiest. It's not the thing that people are going to pick a book up by the side of their bed each night and read about religiously. You've got to kind of be disciplined in terms of really wanting to understand and try and research in a way that's engaging for you. I think that there will be smart people around you. Don't underestimate the people that you work with. And I think one of the most important things, whether you're not just a sales leader, but if you're a sales professional, build relationships internally with your company. Start talking to different stakeholders and individuals and start to ask them for advice and guidance. Whether that's people working on events, whether it's people working in the editorial, whether it's, people that have worked in the industry for a long time. I think it's really important that you read your content. 9 times out of 10, it's going to be free. You're not going to have to pay for it. It's readily there. So I think, grab a coffee and just spend the first 30 minutes of the day reading about your market and what's happening. But don't be afraid to apply your relationship building with your external customers, with your internal stakeholders. That's really important.
Great call. And I think just using the resources in your business too, such a underutilized sales tool. And I think some of the best media sales professionals I've seen are the ones that can actually cast the room properly. They can identify that, okay, we've got a technical buyer here, we've got this person. Who do I bring into that meeting with me? Obviously, as few as necessary, but who could I bring into that meeting with me that's going to be able to cover all of those bases and maybe take, a different role in that presentation or negotiation. One of the things that also probably, to round this out, I was really fascinated by with Aspermont is selling an evolving media offering, right? So I've always loved trade media, business to business kind of media. I'm weird like that. I've just always found that space really interesting. Never worked in it myself, but I'm really mindful that Aspermont, I don't think trade publisher would necessarily, adequately represent what you do. It's certainly not after the last kind of period of transformation. So can you talk a little bit about how does the approach to prospecting have to change as a consequence of the business kind of transitioning and evolving, and maybe specifically how the Aspermont team are kind of tackling that?
Yeah, we've gone through significant change. And when I say we've gone through significant change, we're continually changing. I think that's the most important component to any business, is that you're adapting to market conditions and that you're looking to continually do better and to reinvent yourself. Yeah, our entire sales model now is built on deeper account penetration and a focus on solution selling. So we've spent a lot of time training, setting standards in relation to providing solutions to our customers. We have a fantastic global audience and platforms. We have trust with our readership because they pay to access that through some of the great and outstanding editorial we produce. And that has now allowed us to create unique solutions built from our clients' KPIs. We still have traditional display clients, but what we've seen is that marketers or modern marketers are very KPI driven. They want to see results related to the marketing activity that they undertake. So we've adapted and changed our business model where probably 90% of what we are now discussing with our customers is around KPI-driven marketing, which is using data, using audience outreach and amplification, and the power of first and third-party data. Our commercial approach is really the need to adapt to the buying teams and the influencers that we're selling to. In terms of language, outreach, and having much more sophisticated conversations. That comes down to a need for stronger training. We really push heavily sales enablement, and when we talk about sales enablement, it's using the experts around you, whether that's editorial, whether it's events production, whether it's research, whether it is senior commercial team members, to support each other on calls. Because I do believe that this is an ongoing training process that we've had to implement. A lot of our guys now are talking about quite sophisticated ways that our customers can use data to achieve their KPIs. So we have different levels of experience and knowledge that exist within the business. What we try to encourage is that all of our sales team, regardless of seniority or experience, are tapping into that and using that to really build credible conversations. you raised the point right at the beginning about time. Time is our biggest competitor. How do you get time with a marketing or an industry professional who's going to listen to you and answer the questions that are going to help you build a solid pipeline? So our business has pivoted from what was probably 6-7 years ago a pure print play and a digital play to much more towards a solution driven model.
Yeah, and I should disclose that I have a very small allocation of Aspermont shares that I just recently bought.
Good to hear.
Which I sort of dabble in anything media because it's the world I know. But what piqued my interest with Aspermont was exactly what you said, that it's kind of a legacy publisher that's really sort of innovating and digitizing and becoming more than sort of a media play, and also selling into a really interesting market. Going to jump into listener questions now, Matt.
I can't ask my sales manager that.
Hi Jamie, got any clever hacks to get a client's attention and help secure meetings? I cold call, email, LinkedIn Connect and use warm intros, but what are some other ways to get attention and get meetings with people who get prospected all the time?
That's a tough one. How do you differentiate and how do you cut through and how do you disrupt that, that pattern of sales outreach that a lot of hot prospects are probably pretty good at identifying?
Yeah, it's a very tough one, but probably one of the most common questions you get asked. And the way that I would look at something like that is, if you've tried those channels and you feel that maybe you're not getting the level of response or no response from them, bearing in mind you're one of many that are reaching out, it's probably then worth looking at, what events are these companies attending? Company websites will typically promote events, conferences that they're attending. So maybe it's worth visiting yourself, and we call it doorstepping, but just go onto the booth and say, look, interested in your business. Look, it's a cold call. You may want to boot me off or get security to take me off the stand, but tell me a bit about what you're doing. What's the product or solutions that you're selling? So trying to go up and talk to that person who's on the exhibition stand is a good way to maybe build direct connection. Suggest taking them for a coffee. Try to use that opportunity if it's an event to try and build that empathy, but offer them something like the chance to grab a coffee, or maybe you'll go and grab a coffee for them and take it to them, so that you can have a chat with them and find out a bit more about what's happening. Look at social channels. Don't be afraid to comment on a post. I think what a lot of contacts within organizations are doing is, if you're trying to connect with them on LinkedIn, maybe before you connect with them, start to like some of the posts. If you feel genuinely that the post offers value, because it's your own profile as well. But, and sometimes if you're confident, and this takes a certain level of individual, but ask a question on the post. If you think the post has got value, if you think the post is of interest, this is from a prospect that you're looking to target, don't be afraid to ask them a question about that post and see if you can get them to engage with you that way. Then connect with them on LinkedIn and go, hey, that was a really good response you put through there. I do have a few more questions. Would it be possible to arrange a time to connect so you could tell me more about that? You're kind of going in with more of a warmer approach rather than a cold one. And I think what you find with tools like LinkedIn is it's there for you to connect, but it's also there for you to research, view, and to observe what prospects are doing. But also, the other tools around LinkedIn is there is the ability, I think probably the vast majority of reach out on LinkedIn in terms of connecting is, it's through a connection, like a request. There is a tool where you can actually put a video connection. So I think I had a Salesforce rep reach out to me, and the person did a great job, and she put a small video intro, which I thought was so good that I thought, okay, I'm going to talk to this person, because actually they're very compelling. They've taken the time to reach out and reference my company and what we do. So I think trying a different angle, using tools, but maybe changing the messaging or the message formats, really important.
One of the other ones that I haven't done myself necessarily, but I've seen happen a lot is people that will ask you, they'll go, you have a connection in common. I've looked at your profile and you're connected to this person. How well do you know them personally? And would you introduce me? I've noticed that's becoming more of a thing lately. And I think that's actually, again, it's a referral, but it's almost a proactive, rather than asking for a referral because of great service. It's actually going, can you vouch for my character? Do you have influence and access with this prospect? And can I leverage your relationship to at least get, to cut through the clutter and get to that person? And 9 times out of 10, if you're a good operator and you foster good relationships and you tap your network to do that, I'm yet to have anyone say no. I'm yet to say no to anyone who's asked that for me. I thought that was a simple but maybe underutilized approach as well.
Yeah, it's a great suggestion. I think it's a really good way to use your network and to build trust. I think people ultimately in sales, people still buy people. That's the common denominator for sales. But I think that what we're seeing now is good salespeople are those that can, if something's not working, they can quickly adapt and try something different. The formulated process of using the same thing where you're not getting any response or no one's engaging you, it happens so often, and it's a trap that it's so easy to fall into. I think that was a great example, and it's creativity, thinking differently, and also don't be afraid to ask people around you if you're seeing one of your peers that is more successful, or talk to your manager and say, look, can you give me some suggestions on how I can outreach, or how should I adapt and change? What's worked well for you? I think the more you can speak about it and talk to someone, the more it's going to help you.
It's a really good call. Somebody said it recently and I loved it. They said, life is actually a bit of an open book exam. You just need to see successful people and ask them what they're doing, and they'll probably tell you. And then you just do what they do. Which probably, it's probably an oversimplification, but I thought there's something in that. Well, Matt, thank you so much for joining us today. It was great to talk to you, and I wish you the very best.
Thank you. Pleasure.